Hi, I'm Georgette Pierre, and you're listening to Black and Nuanced Podcast, dispelling the idea that Black people are monolithic. I remember having dreams of working in the music industry. I wanted to be an A&R rep, an artist and repertoire rep. They were the people responsible for finding the next new act, the next big thing that could flip the industry on its head. Now looking back at it in hindsight, that knack for finding stories, people, places, and or things less traveled always interested me, and I thought I was pretty decent at it. After many redirected attempts, not failed, I decided to stop pursuing a career in music. It just didn't feel attainable. Sexism was real, going along to get along, even if that meant compromising my mind, body, and soul wasn't a choice I was willing to make. It was also very volatile, mean-spirited, and uncertain. The egos were loud. I felt like I had to chase people down and be willing to kiss their ass. I'm not saying all people had to do that, and I'm not saying that every industry is exempt from showing their ass either. What I'm saying is the barrier to entry in the music industry looked and felt very different for what I wanted career-wise, and not in an inspiring way. Although I pivoted from the music industry, it didn't stop my younger self from being intrigued with those that had proximity to the business of music. Recorded back in November 2022 when the Grammy nominations were first announced, my next guests, Daryl Garrett Jr. and Dave Giles II, had a lot to be excited about. Owners of WVZ Manufacturing Publishing, Dave was now officially a Grammy-nominated songwriter on one of the most talked about albums of 2022. Fellas, thank you for being here. Apparently, Dave is recording on the mic that Thriller and Beyonce's Renaissance was recorded on. And as we're recording
Absolutely.
it's what, the 40th anniversary? I'm just thinking about the Thriller dance. So much energy in this conversation because WVZ Publishing, Black-owned publishing company, and talking to you all post getting placement on the Beyonce Renaissance album, which we'll get into. But please, first, if you all could introduce yourselves individually and the company overall as a whole. Starting with you, Dave.
Absolutely. What's going on, y'all? First off, my name is Dave Giles II, now Grammy-nominated songwriter. Yeah, Grammy-nominated songwriter, partner in WVZ Manufacturing, 20-year musician, also, worked in tech, worked in engineering, so Webby-nominated engineer as well. So just try and, shoot for the stars wherever I'm at. So. Yeah,
I love that.
I'll let Daryl introduce WVZ, the WVZ brand.
Yeah, because I keep forgetting that manufacturing piece. So excuse me, fellas. Yes, WVZ Manufacturing.
Yes.
Daryl.
Yes. No, it's totally fine. Thank you. WVZ Manufacturing Publishing Company is an independent music publishing company based out of Los Angeles, home of Dave, and I'm based out of New York. And so, but what we're really doing is specializing in music publishing, the administration of publishing, sync licensing, partnerships with artists, songwriters, producers. And, as you just heard, now our roster does include Grammy-nominated artists. So that's a pretty impressive small boutique shop that we've launched here. And so that's a little bit about it. But what makes it special and unique, I think, at its core is, we're serious about making sure that any artist that we work with is enhancing, all of their brand, but also their revenue, right? And what does that look like? And what does those conversations and sprints look like? So we're glad to be at a table with, an eclectic roster, and let me be very specific, an eclectic Black roster of artists. And that's an exciting time for us. But it's all based off of Dave's IP, so shout out to him.
Okay, humble brag. Daryl is the Strategic Partnerships Director of a nonprofit in New York City and the Business of Operations of WVZ Manufacturing Publishing, and really knows his shit when it comes to the business of music, if you couldn't tell. There's a loud intentionality around the what and the why of focusing on Black artists because we haven't always received the knowledge, care, or consideration from an industry we've given so much to. I was curious on the journey of navigating Blackness in the music industry on so many different levels, and you're coming from the level where Black artists were always stiffed out of publishing revenue, right? And so I would love to at least start from this angle, right? So there's some things that happen along the journey. We bump along things along the way. What are some things in the journey of you all getting here that you overlooked that end up just being like, oh shit moment, like, damn, I really needed that. But you kind of like softly downplayed it, as you were navigating the things that you were navigating. Daryl, I'll throw to you first.
I would say, what was overlooked was really paying attention to the stories when I was younger. I've loved music all my life, and when I think about music publishing, some of the most powerful figures, black figures in music, their stories are really rooted in publishing, and ultimately their demise was rooted in publishing, right? So whether we're talking about Sam Cooke, whether we're
Mm.
talking about Michael Jackson, Prince, right? Each of their stories are uniquely tied back to publishing, and the more power that they generated, from this space, kind of the business of music business, their stories were connected to that. And I think one of the things I overlooked was, what does it mean to have that level of power, and what does it mean to have power over, you know, what people are listening to, and what does it mean to have a generational deal, with an artist, whether it's you're looking now and you see an album like Thriller 40 years later being celebrated, biggest album of all time. And, a moment like right now where it's kind of having a renaissance, no pun intended. Um, I think that says a lot to the power of music publishing and just overall ownership. Not just around its masters and the performance of the song, but being able to exploit its song fully, and not an artist. So that's pretty much what I think has been overlooked is the power of music publishing.
So a lot of people I would
Absolutely.
always hear, not even just music business, entertainment business, a lot of artists, creators just didn't know how to mix the business with the creative. And so what were some steps that you overlooked on your journey that proved to be like vital for your success?
So one of the things about the independent journey is that in any kind of space, it's all about managing expectations, right? And so managing them and meeting them, or exceeding them. And so in the independent space, I think so much work is done to kind of tamper and to manage expectations, but that suppression of expectations is usually not does not come along with an understanding of what generates revenue in a long-term space. So for instance, in the independent space, like, we put a lot of emphasis on performance, which is key. It is. I mean, you got to get out, get around, and be seen. Put a lot of emphasis on that, but people will kind of tell you up front, hey, don't bet on radio. Don't bank on radio. Radio is outdated, or, radio is controlled by, such institutions or whatever. And so, don't bank on it. And what I've learned now, having gone through the independent route, and then also now navigating through record labels and kind of seeing what it looks like having things play on community radios and national radio, at least overseas, what I learned is that within publishing, your earnings, right? Like each channel that you can access has a different level of earnings.
Mm.
So every channel is not the same. And so when you start to realize that, it's like, well, if you can even just make it work on community radio and get significant spins on community radio, you can generate revenue as somebody who is not being seen, in mainstream channels and things like that. Or, a lot of times we would look for sync licensing opportunities, but did not necessarily understand, one, how to position yourself for them if somebody's not offering it to you. How to kind of, I guess, essentially just how to put yourself in the best position for things to be picked up. And again, you know that there's a check out there if you sync, but you don't necessarily know that if your song is just in a television broadcast in the background, there's significant money that comes from that happening literally once or twice in a 30-minute broadcast that could earn you more money than 500,000 streams.
Talk to me like I'm two. I always love saying this. Like when people were like, yo, help me understand. What is sync
Yeah.
licensing for those that are not in that space? Like understanding like what types of licensing exist.
Right. So sync licensing is essentially when your music is synced to any kind of public media. And so then, you know, oftentimes when I kind of talked about, you know, we look for the sync licensing check, thinking about things like, oh, there's a campaign that's being booked by a company. And so in that, they know that they need music. And so oftentimes the equivalent of like a RFP will go out there to, you know, the people who are in the know, or who essentially manage catalogs, things of that sort that are trusted, to say, hey, we need this sound, you know? And so they pull songs that kind of meet that brief. And then if a song, you know, gets picked that's attached to an artist, there's usually, you know, a fee that kind of goes straight out. That fee may buy out all rights. That fee may just, you know, be a usage fee, but you retain the rights and you're thusly able to benefit from, you know, the publishing royalties and things like that. And so the thing that's interesting is, you know, like I said, that fee, when somebody comes and kind of hand picks your record, you know, we're talking anywhere from, you know, $500 to $10,000, just kind of in the lower tier of artistry. Well, not artistry, lower tier of artistry, but lower tier of, I guess, I don't want to say celebrity. That sounds weird, but I guess a fame.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that really is what drives the price. Is how well people know you or how much of a demand there is for you.
Yeah.
But there's kind of a blanket pool of, okay, typically anything in this range, if you're not a superstar, is going to be anywhere from, like I said, $500 to $10,000. But having, you know, your song play in the background of a 30-minute broadcast of rugby on the BBC, you know, that can net you $500 in royalties, one play.
It almost gives me the same vibes as like voice acting. I did 2 hours, if that, of work in my home, could walk away with $25,000 as a payout.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's wow. Right. And that makes sense as far as like the tier level of like how in demand are you? How big of a name are you? How many, I guess, what's the word that they use? How, not checkered, but like when, you know, when they talk about, people that are in the military and they got all these badges and the word I was searching for was decorated, but I had a brain fart. One thing that became clear in our conversation is equating being a recording artist with being an entrepreneur. And the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more advantageous it proves to be. Dave, you had talked about you also kind of learning and being on the tech side of things and just really kind of diving in there. You know, for people that are in this industry, there's things, I mean, even just beyond this industry, there's new shit popping up every day, right? What are some tools and tech that is out there that you're using and or would recommend as well?
Yeah. So first off, this is going to sound kind of silly, but I want to send a big shout out to, and this is not at all paid or sponsored, but a big shout out, I wish, to Spotify for Artists. As with most of these platforms, you know, it's like if you're an independent artist, oftentimes you overlook the value of them because, you know, maybe you haven't seen the numbers that other, you know, larger artists are seeing or whatever it may be. But what Spotify for Artists is doing for free, completely for free, is telling you at the most granular level who is listening to you, where, when, and whether you're seeing, you know, 1,000 listens, you know, in a week, or, you know, 20,000 listens in a week, or 100,000 listens in a week, you're able to still, in that space, and I speak from all of those perspectives, in their dashboard, you're able to see enough that can essentially let you know, oh, this happened yesterday. So I can, based on that caused a spike. So maybe if I do that again, I can generate another spike. And so the tools, I mean, it's very rudimentary in terms of just, you know, like audience information and streams and, you know, playlists and all of that. But again, even from the, you know, seeing what playlist that you're on, you know, everybody wants to get on the editorial playlist. But one of the things that I found in, you know, my journey with tracking my records as well as Dave and Sam's records, that's the group that I'm a part of, there are some people whose playlists who are not Spotify, you know, editors, and who are not even tastemakers, you know, in the typical sense, literally regular folks who just have impeccable taste, who somehow everybody found their playlist. And there are records that, you know, I can say, I can attribute 50,000, 60,000 streams to a playlist from a random person who like works in the lobby at W, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? And again, you can figure this out through Spotify for Artists. Like you can go in there and see, and then it's like, you know, you see the name and you're like, okay, let me look this person up. You know, I'm not being too creepy with it, but you know, let me look this person up. Oh, okay. According to LinkedIn, this person is like the receptionist at the hotel, literally.
But that says a lot.
And then that's still a person that you don't ignore, right? That's then the kind of person that you then, if you are seeking to build, again, that engagement and that traction, you reach out to that person and you show them love and you talk to them on social and, you know, all of that. Because, again, like there are tastemakers in every facet of life. And so tools like Spotify for Artists allow you to see not just the big targets, but the regular people, you know, who are still getting you traction just because they love what you do. One more that I'll bring up, again, and you know, data analytics is kind of what always gets me excited in this space, but song stats. It's very difficult to kind of track minute to minute or day to day, week to week, unless it's one of the biggest records in the country, how well a song is performing from a sales standpoint, from a Spotify standpoint, if you're not the lead artist on that song. So if you're a songwriter on it, it's kind of hard to track unless you're getting full transparency from all angles. Otherwise, you might not know how well it's performing for 90 days at a time, basically after reporting comes out. And so song stats allows you to literally track any record, even if it's not yours. You know, you have to pay, but we're talking like $10 a month, which is a lot, but it's not, you know, again, if you're in the business of knowing where things are being played, you know, what charts it's on, that's one of the things that they do very well that, you know, it kind of goes beyond a Spotify for Artists, is that now you're seeing with song stats how it's performing on SoundCloud, if it's on SiriusXM, if it's in Apple Music charts, if it's and not just domestic charts but international charts. And so how many countries are you charting in? Because again, you know, your music may not be jamming in the US, but you're charting in 50 countries, which is a hell of an accolade that could still be leveraged to bring in sponsors, or specifically to target sponsors, partnerships, and booking in certain countries.
So how did all this lead to Dave landing placement on Beyonce's Renaissance?
I was taking very intentional steps that would manifest it happening, in my opinion. So in this particular moment, I was writing for Honey Dijon's team. Honey Dijon is a DJ and producer from Chicago, who's now a multiple Grammy nominated, artist for producing records on Renaissance, and also will very likely be nominated for Best Dance Grammy in 2024 for her own album, Black Girl Magic, which just dropped. So, you know, Honey Dijon is, you know, just a show, an event in every way that you could possibly imagine. Fashion, impacting fashion, you know, again, DJing, live sets, influencing all of that. And so I have been writing with that team for some time because one of the producers, I guess, in her collective was the A&R that signed my act Dave and Sam to Defected Records in the UK. And so even as, you know, I guess the overall reception of this intentional fusion of hip hop and house and R&B and house that, you know, we've been working on, it's kind of tepid in the States. We were still moving full steam ahead with this concept because we all just kind of believed in it. And so in the case of that particular Honey project that we were writing towards, you know, the lyrics were inspired by her femininity. The lyrics were inspired by her blackness. The lyrics were inspired by her stature within the queer community, and, you know, just understanding what that represents and how you have to make the connections and make the references and, you know, make people feel seen and heard and felt. So that was the mission of those records. And so essentially, per my understanding, Honey and I guess B's creative director have a very, very strong relationship. They linked up, they kicked it, they kikied, and all of a sudden, you know, one side says, hey, we love what you're doing and we want to do some of that for B's project. So, like, you know, let's hear more of it. And records that were being created initially for Honey got shared to be. And so you can imagine that an artist like B, again, if you're writing to represent somebody's, just femininity at the highest level, blackness at the highest level, regal stature, within a community. And then of course, music that can be appreciated by, not just, heteronormative cisgender folks, but also the queer community. It's right in line with B as well. And so, records that were kind of designed around Honey's IP and Honey's brand, B was the vessel.
Oh my gosh. And the song was
Cozy, track 2 on Renaissance. Yeah.
I
shout out to the squad too, because they did Alien Superstar as well.
Okay.
So
ooh.
Yes.
It's like, okay, and I like house music now. Be more Chicago,
yes.
throw it at me. I like it. And I was like, Cozy felt aligns with what I was expecting. And then I had to get more into the rest of the album. Outside of everyone else is like, oh my gosh, I love this album. Oh my gosh, this is my, I wanted to form my own opinion. So congratulations on that. I think what you all are doing is one, empowering artists, right? And so I think the music industry has kind of always been set up in a way where it just does not benefit the artists. And so, why do you think that level of ignorance continues to exist knowingly and unknowingly around publishing, around, artists wanting to give their shit up, just like, here, take it. And I'm just like, I think about the article that I read on Twitter about Jason Weaver and Lion King, and how his mom was like, don't take $2 million, get royalties. And his mom told him not to do that, he would have only got this. And he's made way over the 2 million from royalties, because he was like, Disney's going to make so much more money off of this forever. Like, that's forever money, right? And so, how are you all empowering artists? But also the first part of that question, why are artists constantly just giving their publishing rights away in exchange for just like quick money, especially Black artists, it feels like?
I mean, I think, again, kind of just the framework of it being that, publishing is the business of music business. And I think with that being said, the reason why a lot of artists, quite frankly, don't commit as much time as they should to the business of the music business is because, first, right, it's positioned to artists as a front-end industry, meaning that what's sexy and glamorous in the music industry is being in front of the stage, in front of something in some kind of way, where there's another pathway, right? And so a big part of that pathway is breaking down how are songs constructed, how are folks making revenue from a song. And again, just the notion of publishing is rooted in, we're not here to exploit an artist, we're here to exploit a song. And the more it's perceived that way, I think the more there's an understanding of what this is all about. And it's basically about enhancement, right? So an artist can have a vision, you can have a song, it can be brilliant. But if no one's there to help you maximize that song to its fullest potential, i.e., get it to its fullest bandwidth, the fullest market that it can reach, get it fully to scale, and it takes about 18 months, right? And so having someone work on your behalf for 18 months, whether that be a record label where you're publishing it in-house, by design, so to speak, or you're working independently with a boutique like a Waves Manufacturing Publishing Company, is an opportunity for you to really outsource the business of music business so you can focus on the music, but understanding that as an artist, there's no escape. You have to be immersed in the knowledge of music business. And if you don't have a manager or a friend or someone that is walking you through this process, I mean, you might as well it's a hobby. It's not a business for you. And I think that's the number one thing to kind of understand about music publishing is like, yeah, if you're in this at all, to make money, and you're not just thinking about the front end, how do I make money from shows? How do I make money from performance, etc.? Anything behind the scenes, it makes sense to kind of outsource it if you don't have a heavy team behind you, you're not signed to a label, and you kind of want to just focus in on the music. Yeah, partner with a Waves Manufacturing and Publishing Company, because what they're there for is, not to exploit you, but again, make sure that anything that's a part of your catalog or anything that you're producing is maximized to its fullest potential. And that's not just about, like, again, reach on the, kind of mechanical royalty side, right? Focused in on where the streaming's happening, the vinyls, the, CDs. I know there's still a handful of them out there. Like, wherever that may exist within the world, that's one hand of it, but also the other side of, kind of being on the performance side of that, as a songwriter, as a producer, etc. You really got to be immersed in this world to understand how it's going to impact what you're receiving on the revenue side. And so I'm just proud of Dave's journey because he's been fully a part of it as an artist, right? Like not just focused in on what does it mean to be on the performance side, on the mechanical side, but what does it also look like to be, you know, a part of the creative design of a marketing plan? What does it mean to ensure that an artist understands that something down to an album cover is worthy of being copywritten, right? And all of these type of lessons, no one's going to walk you through it as an artist. You do kind of have to seek it out, or they will come to you based on your numbers. But we pride ourselves on being niche enough and agile enough to be able to have a pulse on what's going on in culture and understand that no one can do this better than us in terms of, you know, not just who we're marketing towards, but understanding what it means to exploit a song and not an artist.
Talk yo shit. Hustle, hustle, hustle. Because I heard a little plug like if you need a publishing, call 555.
Right?
The way he sold it. Shameless plug. If y'all need a raspy voice to hit somebody's intro, interlude,
Yes.
I'm being dead. I got an agent. Don't y'all play me, okay? I mean
Yes.
business. I got a
There you
voiceover
go.
agent, okay? How do you all capitalize now on this Grammy-nominated situation, which could potentially be a Grammy-winning situation by the time this episode comes out? Like, how do you capitalize on that and not necessarily get taken advantage of in future situations with other major artists?
Absolutely. So there are a few things with that. I mean, ultimately it becomes your elevator pitch. So what it has already done, I have, as opposed to typically, being pitched production from people in kind of remote spaces and, which is a thing that's been going on for some time now, for a couple of years now, just, tracks come my way and I kind of decide what to work with or what to bring other writers in on and whatnot. Now I'm being requested into rooms. Now I'm being, asked, hey, is, Dave available to come write on this record? Can Dave do this kind of writing? Can Dave do that kind of writing? And so now I'm walking into rooms and people are essentially like, okay, you wrote for B, so whatever you say, like I trust, like it's gonna be good. And so what that does for our business is, again, it's all about the catalog. So if I write for, your favorite EDM producer, then Waves Manufacturing is controlling a portion of something that, again, may end up in a campaign, may be in all the Electric Circus, whatever the festival is called, the EDC festival or whatever, all of those massive festivals and things like that. And again, having records that are playing in places, not just streaming, there's that's a route, but literally every other avenue for your records to be played earns more revenue than what streaming does. And so the more opportunities that, you are demanded into the studio, that you are requested to work with other people, the more opportunities there are to expand the catalog.
Yeah. Okay, so Dave's now written for Beyonce. His name is in rooms he hasn't walked into yet. Waves Manufacturing is now in a position to build such a curator roster. But some shit has usually happened prior to experiencing or tasting the fruits of your labor. I call it life interrupted moments, aka what the fuck just happened moment. Essentially, lived experiences that cause us to course correct in our life journeys. What was your life interrupted moment, personally or professionally?
I'll go personal. I would say, this is going to be kind of cliche, but getting married was probably one of the biggest course corrections that has led to this in every way. And so for one, I was in a rap group. Again, we collaborated, for years. And so there was some time where basically, we all started kind of moving around and, different priorities, different places and spaces. And, we made really dope music in this group. And I think that everybody who was aware of what we were doing was aware of the talent, but we were not aware of, at the time, the steps the budgeting, the business, and just all of those different elements that, you know, take what we were doing specifically to the next level. And so within that, it was also kind of a, you know, a bit of a niche, you know, very much, you know, mid-20s kind of, you know, toxic young male, you know, POVs, that kind of thing. So not necessarily breaking the mold, but we were definitely doing some innovative things in terms of how we crafted it. And when I got married, at some point, my wife says to me after going to one of our shows, she's just like, hey, you know, I love what you do. I love your music, but I need something I can dance to. And I need something that like won't like, you know, disrespect like my friends or me, or like, you know, just be a bad reflection on your kids, or, you know, like I need some stuff that like I can really like champion and like, you know, wave the flag for and like be, you know, out front row behind. And so around that same time, Sam, who is the other half of Sam OB, who's the other half of Dave and Sam, had this, you know, hey, I got this novel idea. You're from Chicago. I've heard you freestyle over dance music tempos. Let's do hip house. Like I'm gonna produce some Chicago house inspired records, and I just want you to do your thing, and we'll figure it out. And that, we're talking at this point almost 10 years ago. But that change, like that shift, that intention of, okay, make the women dance while still not embarrassing my kids, while still still, you know, not disrespecting, you know, my in-laws and, you know, all of that. That formula is why we're here. You know, that formula is I largely believe, and that's again not to discredit what we were doing, you know, in the past, but it's to say that in terms of creating something that, again, you know, it's all about demographics. And when you talk about publishing and about, you know, successful catalogs, it's really about how many demographics can you get in front of. Not necessarily that you have to be a certain way or you have to fit a certain mold, but just how many demos can you get in front of. So the decision to not curse, you know, or at least not curse explicitly, in a lot of my records these days, that decision in itself means that if I'm with a label, that label doesn't have to take money out of my budget to make clean versions of my records to get them to that other audience. Or they don't have to make the decision of, we're just not going to do that because that's going to be time and money and effort. And there's just the whole, you know, kids just won't be, parents won't play, you know, your music around their kids. It's just what it is, you know. Little things like that just open up the demographic. And so by being able to have music that, you know, again, women could see themselves in and could enjoy, and that, you know, the queer community could see themselves in and could enjoy, and that connected us. You know, I'm very much me, you know, but I'm not too macho to party with anybody, you know, and I think just that objective has made my records able to play not just, you know, in Bed-Stuy where they were thriving before, or in the South Side of Chicago where they were thriving before, but literally around the world. And so, you know, people in the U.S. may not have known who Dave was, but my records were ringing out around the world for 2 and 3 years before B, you know, kept my verse, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think so much of that can be attributed to just that shift in perspective, shift in intention.
I just recently celebrated my 4th decade around the sun. I've had every 7 years of what the fuck just happened moment. So no need for me to dive into all that on the personal side. Around this time, you know, David reached back out, you know, and he's been doing his things. Things were bubbling. And I think at the time he just needed that kind of trusted source to be able to at least ideate, talk about, you know, where he was as an artist and what he needed to manage and balance his life overall. And, you know, originally it was kind of in that management conversation, but, you know, fast forwarded to where he is now, I'm so happy a year later that, you know, the what the fuck happened moment was a year ago we were talking about waves as a concept, and to see what it is growing into already in just that short
Yep.
amount of time is the what the fuck just happened moment. And, you know, again, a lot of that is credited to Dave's vision, his ability as an artist to be agile and be flexible and be willing to stand in spaces where other artists may not be. That goes a long way, right? And I think that talks to the longevity of his career, because it's not like it just happened overnight. It's not an overnight success story. You know, my hope is 2 years from now he's best new artist at the Grammys, but it's he's been around forever. You get what I'm saying? That's the type of journey you want to
Mm-hmm.
see. But the what the fuck just happened moment is just knowing, like, to its core, that, just having a vision and sticking to it, and then seeing it happen, you know, that is the what the fuck, right? That's what we're all in it for ultimately, is that payoff, that moment. And so, I'm just kind of glad to be a part of it, and really proud of Dave's work and his journey, and everyone that supported it along the way. Obviously no one's an island, but I know that brother's put in a lot of time and space to kind of hone in on who he is as an artist and as a man.
Thank you, brother.
Life is about seasons, and there are some that we can actually name. Probably a lot that we can actually name. Wrapping up our conversation, I asked Daryl and Dave to name the chapters of their lives before and after their life interrupted moment.
Before that moment, it would have been the spook who sat by the door.
And if people don't know, I actually saw that on YouTube, and I have the book, and I didn't read the book yet. That's actually hilarious.
Yo, yeah, I have always been able to access the periphery, of these very large and very prestigious places and spaces, and as just in a very unassuming way. And even if I'm not the focal point, even if I'm behind the lens, behind the camera, whatever it is, I've just kind of always believed in taking notes and just trying to get the game, no matter what. I don't know. Maybe the sequel will be the spook who kicked in the door, but
Kick in the doorway,
it could be that, or Field of Dreams, maybe. If you build it, they will come. Because I think that's what I've seen now, is that literally just making things because they didn't exist, or making things because I felt like this is what I want to hear, or this is what the world could use, or whatever it may be, and just trusting that. And people eventually come around to it, across that 20 years. If you keep,
they will
keep going. So
yeah, I think before it would have been the road less traveled. I think the previous 20 years of my life, is pretty much been rooted in finding myself in places and spaces that are, kind of what I would refer to as a sweet spot, right? Like, there's not a lot of me's in there, meaning that as at the time relatively young black male, and still young, don't get me wrong, but I'm saying, like, it was really about finding my space as a fundraiser. For example, it's a white woman's dominated field. To have 20 years of credentials in that space, to be awarded in that space is unusual, and to be specific, like nonprofit fundraising, right? So that is a field that's dominated by white women. Even down to my hobbies, right? Like biking, hiking, all these things. Like, it's just you don't see traditionally, but well, now you do, but before it wasn't a traditional male black space. And I think as well, fast forwarding even to music publishing, as we become executives in this space, what's super clear is that there aren't a lot of us at this table. And I think that, again, my entire journey has been rooted about finding the road less traveled and being able to stick with it. And so as we think about, Waves Manufacturing Publishing Company and the journey ahead, it's all about that. And that goes right to kind of like to your question of what would it be now? It is exactly that, catch the wave, because the next journey of my life is all about, kind of being in service to black artists, and in a real rooted way of ensuring that they are enhancing not just their brand, their reputations, the music, the content they're involved in, everything else under the sun. But more than that, ensuring that they're changing the trajectory of their own lives and that of their families, through their medium of music. So that's what it's all about.
Oh, I love that. The spook who sat by the damn door and who kicked in the door, waving the I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Now, how can they find you online, which will also be in the show notes?
You can find us online at WVZMFG.com, and on most of the social platforms, Instagram and Twitter in particular, you'll find us at WVZMFG. And then as an artist, Dave Giles II, that's with 2 I's on the end, Roman numeral style, on all the platforms. Dave and Sam, Dave plus Sam, kind of like the 50s group, but for the 99 and the 2000s. And yeah, you can find that on all platforms as Dave and Sam Music.
Hearing their journey helped me feel affirmed in my redirected path from the music industry. As of this recording and this episode release, the Grammys haven't aired yet. But when they do, make sure you're on the lookout for Dave Giles II being nominated for his work on Cozy. Just a reminder. That actually happens to be my favorite track still. Yeah, okay. Anywho, this episode was a preview of more to come in season 4 of Black and Nuanced. It feels so damn good to be back, and I'm glad to grace the microphone again. While I'm working on new episodes for you, feel free to dig in the crates of past seasons, including one of my favorite episodes in season 3 called Love is the New Black, where we waxed poetic about Beyonce's Black is King on Disney+. Look at the stars aligning on the Beyonce tip. Also, seriously, it was a good episode and the most listened to. Anywho, shout out to my co-producer and editor, Wise Grisette of the Indie Creative Network. Cheers to a stronger and intentional season 4, because just like Issa Rae said, I'm rooting for everybody Black, including my damn self. Peace.